Steve, Fadi, welcome. It's very early Friday morning here in Singapore. ICANN 52 ended only about 12 hours ago. Steve, there was a lot of uncertainty whether the community would come together at this meeting over the IANA stewardship transition proposal and the related accountability measures. Now that the week is over, is the community coalescing or is it still pretty far apart?
Well, the community is definitely coalescing. One of the great things about the ICANN meetings that we hold is that it provides an opportunity to bring people together face to face, and there's nothing as helpful in reducing distance and uncertainty as having all of the interactions face to face, some informal meetings and plenty along the side. And it's quite evident, you can talk to any number of people, that there's been progress along the way. Views that are strongly held get exchanged and then they get ironed out and sorted out.
Fadi, is that your perception as well?
Absolutely. I think we saw this week the strength of the ICANN community, the strength of our volunteers, and the unique ability of ICANN to bring business, civil society, governments, and technical people into discussions that bind them, that bring them together around core issues. So I'm frankly very pleased with a great week. We accomplished a lot, and I think we now have paved the way to ensure that the right solutions necessary for the transition of the IANA stewardship functions are heading in the right direction. But we also did a lot of other work. I want to make sure that people appreciate that the energy of the community and the work of the community on many other issues have also gone forward during this week.
What's dominating your thinking in terms of ICANN and where we have to be going into ICANN 53 in Buenos Aires?
Look, we are the stewards now. We're being prepared to be the stewards of these IANA functions. It is very important that our house is solid, that the world sees the home of the IANA functions to be accountable, to be well governed, to have the community with recourse mechanisms to ensure that we are performing these functions in a way that is satisfactory to all the sectors, governments, businesses, civil society, all the people that actually benefit from the work of the IANA functions. Therefore, that's our goal. That's our goal, is to bring us together and strengthen, put every possible mechanism that will ensure that the home of the IANA functions is a solid home that can give stability and resiliency to the core functions that ensure the internet serves everyone. And that means maybe we will adopt mechanisms and measures that some people may have thought impossible. This week we have heard our board collectively say that we're willing to go as far as being removed or recalled if certain key conditions and performance areas have not been met by ICANN, giving the assurance to the world that ICANN is going to be accountable up to and including the removal of its leadership if necessary in order to ensure proper performance. That's an accountable direction that gives the world the assurance to be confident that the home of the IANA functions will be responsive.
Steve, let me spin off of that in the context of the board. There was a lot of discussion this week about new mechanisms to spill the board or replace individual board members. If I'm a board member, that sounds pretty threatening to me.
Not really. It turns out that our board is drawn from the community. Most of the board has lived in the community and embodies the values of the community. This is not a seat of power that we hold on to. This is a public service that we perform. We're deeply, deeply committed to making sure that the processes and the institution work properly. We watch all aspects. The IANA function itself has been rock solid. We are, much of our attention is in the areas that the community is watching. Are we accountable? Do all of the business processes and all of the bureaucratic processes we have, do they work smoothly? We are, for example, paying very close attention to whether or not we are following through on the implementation of the recommendations for the last Accountability and Transparency Review Team's recommendations, ATRT2. We are paying a lot of attention to what the community is talking about in these two processes, the proposals coming from the different parts of the community for the stewardship of the IANA function and on accountability of ICANN itself. And we are in a mode where I would say we are anticipating implementing some of the kinds of things that we're hearing, some of which match what we've been talking about. We don't want to get ahead of the community, but we are definitely ready to add new mechanisms or to adjust the mechanisms that we have. All of us serve for a limited period of time, and so this isn't some piece of territory that we're hanging on to. This is in our stewardship of ICANN, and we want to leave the institution in a stronger position than we came.
What came at you during this meeting? Does the community have confidence in the board?
I think the community has confidence in the board. One of the messages we've heard is that the work of the board is not as visible as they would like, which frankly is a consequence of us actually trying to stay out of the way and not take the lead on things. And one of the sort of mild surprises is, well, then we have no idea what you're doing. I said, well, in a way, that's exactly what we expected, but we had some serious discussion internally about how we can make some adjustments, share more about what goes on behind the scenes, which is not as deep or complicated as people might think. The real decisions, the real policies and all that are made by the community, and that's something that we've tried over a period of time to not have the board take the lead on. But people still want to know what's going on, and we'll find ways to bring all that out in the open without stumbling over ourselves with too much introspection.
Fadi, during this Sunday evening informational session on transition and accountability, Professor Jan Schulte, one of the independent advisors in the accountability process, raised questions about the accountability of the accountability holders. Did he inject a new line of thinking into the equation?
Absolutely. And again, let's be clear, I think Professor Schulte was just noting that these are the kinds of mechanisms and measures that give the world confidence in the ICANN institution, in the home of the IANA functions. He is right. We must have review mechanisms that are independent. We must have mechanisms to hold all those in charge, the board of directors, the management team, fully accountable to the community in performing the functions of IANA, because these are central to the operation of the internet. We support Professor Schulte's views, we support his participation, and we hope other experts in governance and accountability contribute so that ICANN, by the time the US ends its stewardship, ICANN's readiness and the confidence of the world in our readiness is so solid and irreproachable that it will be a natural transition.
Fadi, there was something new at this meeting's opening ceremony. The audience heard from community leaders about their respective organizations, including the NRO, the ASO, IETF. Why did we do that?
Because ICANN needs to play its full role as the coordinator of the unique identifiers in the system. These are independent groups and bodies that make policies. Some of them part of the ICANN ecosystem, others completely independent. And that's the marvelous constellation of how the internet has been designed, where we are a polycentric model, as we say. We don't need to have everything controlled by a center. Quite the opposite. Just like the internet, its governance must be distributed and polycentric. And on Monday morning, we saw that. We saw how the policies come from the IETF, and they come from the CCNSO and the GNSO and the ASO and NRO, and how all of these get coordinated at ICANN, but not controlled directly by ICANN. They have the policy mechanisms that are community-based, and we wanted on Monday morning to give that visual, that picture, in practice of how ICANN was always designed from the beginning to be the coordinator of the ecosystem, not the center of the ecosystem.
Steve, you obviously come from a technical background. Was it nice for you to see the technical community being put up front and center?
It was indeed, for all the reasons that Fadi said, and it provided for the people who are ICANN people but who have not had the background in the technology to hear from those segments and learn a little bit more than they might have understood before. It's a gathering of old friends when we get together. They, we all know each other, most of us, and are pretty much aligned. Everybody has his own set of issues that it deals with, but this is a comfortable, cooperative gathering, but as Fadi said, with a tremendous amount of independence of action and distribution of control, so that nobody is sitting in a pinnacle position.
Gentlemen, thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Thank you.